Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into some business case studies you've sent in, and well, let's just say we're going to take a trip back in time. Get ready for some market mayhem, corporate shenanigans, and maybe even a cautionary tale or two.
Yeah, these cases might seem like ancient history, right?
Right.
But they really do hold up as they offer some valuable lessons about risk and innovation and that constant sort of push and pull between, individual ambition and the greater good.
Okay. So first up, the Edsel.
Hmm.
Um, this is one of those stories like, what were they thinking,
Oh,
right?
yeah. I mean, it's almost legendary. I mean, how badly this car flopped, right? And despite this Ford's massive marketing push behind it, they poured millions into advertising, created a whole new division for it. They even pulled dealers from their existing Ford and Lincoln lines. So, they were all in.
And then the cars hit the showrooms, and they're practically falling apart.
Yeah, yeah.
Talk about killing your own buzz.
It's a classic example of a company. It's like they fell in love with their own vision.
Right.
And
Right.
they just ignored what the market was actually saying. And market research at the time showed that consumers, they were leaning towards smaller, more fuel-efficient cars.
Mm.
And Ford went all in on big and flashy.
Yeah. Well, it backfired.
It backfired spectacularly.
Yeah.
Even giants can stumble when they fail to listen to their customers, right?
That is such a crucial point. Even today, right, with
Mhm.
all the data, all the analytica that we have available,
Yeah.
you still see companies making those mistakes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, thinking they know better than their customers.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's that the Edsel's a stark reminder that no company, no matter how big, how successful, is immune to market forces.
It's almost comical how Ford, like, desperately tried to salvage this thing, right?
Yeah.
Letters to the owners, the desperate price cuts, but the damage was done.
Yeah, the Edsel became synonymous with failure. And even today, it's a cautionary tale. It's a stark reminder that, brand perception, incredibly powerful, and once tarnished, very, very difficult to rebuild.
You never get a second chance to make a first impression, right?
Exactly, exactly. The Edsel story, it really underscores the importance of a strong product launch, right? And a
Yeah.
deep, deep understanding of consumer preferences.
Okay, well, let's shift gears here to a company that definitely understood the power of a good product. We're going to talk about Xerox. And their story, I mean, talk about a wild ride from those early days with the mimeograph to the explosion of xerography. Wow.
Yeah, what's remarkable about Xerox is that, they didn't just introduce a new product, right? They sparked a revolution
Yeah.
in how we access and share information. And suddenly, anyone could copy anything.
Right.
And that had massive implications.
Yeah, not all of them good.
Right, right.
Right. I mean, this is where we get into these interesting copyright issues, right?
Right.
Suddenly, libraries are these hotbeds of potential infringement. Who knew that Shakespeare would be so controversial, right?
The Xerox case, it really throws a spotlight on one of the biggest challenges of the information age. How do you balance easy access to information with the rights of creators?
Right.
And it's a debate that's still raging today.
Absolutely.
But it took center stage, really, with the advent of photocopying.
It's incredible to think how far we've come from those early days of, like, rubbing metal with cat fur to make copies.
Right.
I mean, can you imagine, like, someone trying to explain that today?
It's a real testament to human ingenuity, though, and this persistent pursuit of innovation. I mean, amazing. But it also raises a critical question, which is, in a world of instant copying, right? How do we design systems that protect authors and artists while still allowing for the free flow of information?
Right.
Something to think about.
Yeah, it's really complex. I mean, there's no easy answers to these things.
Yeah.
But speaking of complex, you sent me some material on the Texas Gulf Sulfur case, and this is like a financial thriller. We've got secret mineral discoveries, insider trading, the SEC finally stepping in. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this case is fascinating because it really kind of takes us into this murky world of insider information, and it raises questions about, what constitutes a truly fair market. Like, should anyone be able to profit from information that isn't publicly available? It's a debate that continues to this day.
And the lengths that these guys went to, we're talking secret codes, burner phones. They even staged a fake drilling site.
Right.
It's like a spy movie or something.
Well, the Texas Gulf Sulfur case, it wasn't just about a few individuals trying to, make a quick buck. It it exposed a systemic issue within the financial markets. Like the potential profits from insider trading were so vast that, people were willing to risk their reputations, their careers, even freedom. And what's important is this case forced Wall Street to confront this issue head on. It led to stricter regulations, greater scrutiny of insider trading practices. So it was a pivotal moment in the quest for a more transparent and equitable market.
It's just wild to think about those geologists in the Canadian wilderness, and they strike this massive deposit of copper and zinc,
Right.
and it's like one phone call, and they could make a fortune, but at what cost?
Yeah, yeah. The Texas Gulf sulfur case serves as a stark reminder that ethical considerations are paramount in business, even when faced with, incredibly tempting opportunities, right?
Right.
What might seem like a victimless crime can actually, undermine the entire financial system. It can erode trust in the market,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So big implications. That Xerox story, it really got me thinking about how technology can just completely revolutionize the way we work and share information. But it wasn't always so easy to spread ideas around, was it? You included some stuff about the early days of the mimeograph, and it sounds like it had a tougher time, getting accepted.
Oh, yeah. It's really interesting how resistant people can be to new technologies.
Right.
Especially when they challenge the existing ways of doing things, right?
Right.
And back in the late 1800s, I mean, the very idea of making multiple copies of a document, that was met with suspicion, right?
Yeah.
Some people they feared it would lead to information overload, right? Others they worried about security risks.
Right.
It's like they couldn't imagine a world where paperwork was just a fact of life.
It's so true. And it wasn't just the technology itself. It was this potential disruption to these established hierarchies, right?
Oh, exactly. The mimeograph, it threatened to upend the traditional power dynamics of the office.
Oh, yeah.
Suddenly anyone could create and distribute documents,
Right.
potentially bypassing, the gatekeepers who controlled information flow. And it's a pattern that we see, time and again throughout history. Like new technologies emerge, they disrupt existing power structures, and they create, both exciting opportunities
Right.
and understandable anxieties.
Oh, absolutely. Makes you wonder what kind of disruptions are brewing right under our noses, right? Right.
Right, exactly.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's get back to this crucial issue of copyright protection that the Xerox case, brought up.
Right.
And it seemed like a pretty big deal back then.
Yeah.
Libraries, suddenly they're thrust into this debate.
Yeah, it really was a watershed moment. I mean, this ability to, easily and cheaply copy information on a mass scale, it forced a reckoning with this age-old tension between access and ownership. Like,
Yeah.
How do we ensure that creators that they're fairly compensated for their work, right?
Right.
While also making information accessible to all.
Right.
And it's a question that's really only become more complex in the digital age, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the debate rages on, digital piracy, online sharing platforms, AI-generated content. I mean, oh my gosh.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and as technology continues to evolve, at this unprecedented pace, I think, we're going to need to find innovative solutions to these challenges. Perhaps new forms of digital rights management or novel business models that can kind of strike that balance between protecting creators and fostering this widespread access to information.
Okay. Let's shift gears a little bit here to something that might seem a bit drier than high-tech gadgets and corporate espionage, right? But something that affects us all, the U.S. income tax system.
Oh, yeah.
And the material you sent over, I mean, it really dives deep into the history of this thing and all the complexities.
Well, the U.S. income tax is fascinating because, it really reveals so much about our values, right? And our priorities as a society.
Right.
I mean, it's a tool for funding these essential government services,
Right.
and promoting social welfare.
Right.
But it's also this constant source of debate, right? And controversy with questions about fairness and complexity and the influence of special interests.
Right. And it's amazing to think that the U.S. was actually a late adopter of the income tax.
Right.
I mean, and even when it was finally implemented, I mean, it faced some pretty fierce resistance.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, early attempts to implement an income tax, I mean, they were often met with accusations of, government overreach, infringement on individual liberties. And it, it took time for the idea to gain, this kind of widespread acceptance.
It's incredible to see how the tax code has evolved.
Yeah. Yeah.
From those relatively simple early versions to like the sprawling, complex document we grapple with today.
Yeah, and I think that evolution, it really reflects, the changing nature of the economy,
Right.
the growth of government, and of course, that constant tug of war
Yeah.
between those seeking to minimize their tax burden and those advocating for a fairer, more progressive system, right?
Yeah, right. It's this balancing act. It never really ends.
No, it really doesn't. And then you have these infamous loopholes.
Oh, don't even get me started on the loopholes.
Right, that always seem to be in the news, right? It's almost like this game, where the wealthy and the well-connected, they can kind of navigate this labyrinthine system to, reduce their tax liability.
Right.
While the average person is left, kind of feeling lost and confused.
Yeah. It's almost like it's rigged, against the average taxpayer.
Right, right. And the whole debate around capital gains is a great example. The idea that profits from investments are taxed at a lower rate than wages. I mean, it seems counterintuitive to a lot of people.
It does.
Right.
It does.
It's a complex issue. There are valid arguments on both sides.
True.
Proponents of the lower capital gains rate, they argue that it incentivizes investment and risk taking,
Right.
which ultimately benefits the economy as a whole, right?
Right.
Critics, however, they contend that it exacerbates wealth inequality, right?
Yeah.
And it disproportionately benefits, those who are already well off.
It really is amazing how, these case studies from the Edsel, all the way to those AT&T shareholder meetings, they highlight the human drama that unfolds behind the scenes, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
The business world.
Yeah. I mean, business history is it's full of these compelling narratives that, that reveal so much about ambition, about competition, and the ethical challenges that arise as companies navigate, this pursuit of profit, right?
That's so true.
Yeah. And speaking of competition, this next case you've included here, I mean, it takes us right into the heart of the space race.
Oh, here we go.
B.F. Goodrich, right?
Okay.
And the stolen spacesuit secrets.
Oh, okay. This has all the makings of like a Cold War thriller here.
Yeah.
Secret designs, corporate espionage, national security. Oh my gosh.
This case is a wild ride, and
Right.
it highlights, it really highlights this intense competition that fueled the space race.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
it wasn't just a contest between nations, right? It was also this fierce battle between corporations, right?
Right.
Vying for, these lucrative government contracts.
You're right. It's easy to forget, right, that even in a field as seemingly noble as space exploration, there were these complex business interests at play. I mean, it makes you realize that the drive for innovation and profit, they often go hand in hand. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And the story of Donald Wolgemuth,
Okay.
right? The Goodrich engineer who left to work for a competitor, Latex, and he took with him, this valuable spacesuit design knowledge, right? It's a perfect example of this tension, it raises all sorts of questions about, intellectual property, employee loyalty,
Right.
and the lengths to which companies will go to protect their competitive edge.
It's fascinating how Goodrich actually went to court to prevent this guy from working for Latex. I mean, they weren't just worried about losing money.
Right.
They were concerned about the national security implications, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is the Cold War.
Right.
I mean, any perceived advantage in the space race felt critical.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the stakes were incredibly high.
Yeah.
And the fact that the court, I mean, they ultimately sided with Goodrich, essentially forbidding Wolgemuth from working on spacesuits, right? For any other company. I mean, that speaks volumes. This wasn't just about a contract dispute, right? This was about protecting national interests, right?
Right.
In the midst of this global ideological struggle, during the Cold War.
Imagine being Donald Woldemuth, right?
Yeah.
In that courtroom, knowing that your entire future career is hanging in the balance,
Mhm.
and then to top it all off, he had to take the stand wearing a spacesuit. Oh my gosh. Talk about adding insult to injury.
It's a bizarre and almost comical image, but it speaks to the absurdity, right?
Right.
That often arises in even the most serious legal battles.
It does. I mean, the Goodrich case, it really, it forces us to consider the complexities of intellectual property rights.
Yeah.
How do you balance a company's need to protect its trade secrets, right?
Yeah.
With an individual's right to pursue their career. That's a question that's as relevant today, as it was back then.
Oh, absolutely. And in our current era of just this rapid technological advancement, I mean, these issues they've only become more complex, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, think about the debates surrounding things like patent trolling, right? Or non-compete clauses. I mean, the Goodrich case, it serves as this fascinating, historical precedent for these ongoing conversations.
It's incredible, how these seemingly isolated events from the past, right?
Yeah.
They can resonate so strongly with the challenges that we face today, and and really underscores the value of studying history, right?
Right.
It provides context, it sparks new ideas, and it reminds us, right, that
Mhm.
we're not alone in grappling with these complex issues.
Well said. I mean, these business case studies, they remind us that behind every successful product, every booming industry, every financial transaction, there are stories of innovation, right?
Right.
Of risk taking,
Yeah.
and yes, sometimes even a little bit of mischief.
Right.
And more importantly, they highlight that human element that drives it all, right?
The ambition, the ingenuity, and sometimes, the flawed decision-making that shapes the course of business history.
Yeah, it's a pertinent reminder that business, at its core, is about people. It's about their ideas, their relationships, and their impact on the world around them. And as we've seen through these cases, the decisions, right, that are made by individuals within these organizations, they can have these far-reaching consequences.
Yeah.
Shaping industries, impacting economies, and leaving this lasting legacy on society as a whole.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into business history, I mean, what's the one big takeaway? What's the one big idea that we should all carry with us?
I think it's this. I think it's that the business world, it's not this abstract entity, operating in a vacuum. It's a reflection. It's a reflection of ourselves, our values, and our collective choices. And by studying these historical cases, by understanding, the mistakes and the triumphs of those who came before us, we gain these valuable insights, right?
Yeah.
That can help us navigate the complexities of the modern marketplace,
Right.
and build a more sustainable and a more equitable future for everyone.
Yeah, it's a reminder to never underestimate the power of a good story.
Well said.
To illuminate the present
Mm.
and inspire us to to create a better future. Thanks for joining us on this journey through business history.
Mhm.
And until next time, keep those fascinating source materials coming.